July 6th, 1892. Dear Martha, Daniel and I didn't have long to be sad about leaving the elephants. When we got back to the camp last night, Marie and Elmer came to see Miss Massimo. Elmer said, "He was here again, that troublemaker." Massimo said, "Who? Which one?" Marie said, "The townie with the scar. The one that was asking questions about Teddy and Daniel." Susanna knew that I would panic. She said, "See, Teddy? Not a minute too soon. Perfect timing," Massimo said. "He'll be here in the morning trying to find them as well as we leave." Susanna didn't seem worried. "Yes, he'll be here looking for 2 boys. Boys will be going north with us. But he won't be looking for 2 girls. Girls who are going south on the train." Daniel said, "Uh-oh." He looked at me. "2 girls?" Marie said, "You will need my help." Susanna said, "Yes. Marie, meet me at the costume wagon. Elmer, can you find me 2 boys who are roughly the size of Teddy and Daniel? I'll need them for a little while in the morning. About 7 o'clock. Marie and Susanna began laying out bolts of material and shuffling through patterns. As they worked, Susanna asked, "Teddy, did you mention that you know someone in St. Augustine?" I said, "Yes, Miss Melman lives in St. Augustine. She will help us, I'm sure." Susanna said, "Good. Then this disguise only has to work until then." Daniel said, "But what about my hair? It's cut really short." Marie said, "This is the circus, Daniel. We've had every kind of wig you could ask for." Massimo said, "I'll telegraph your Miss Melman first thing in the morning." I said, "She's at the Sheridan School for Girls, Miss Cassie Melman." Marie and Susanna worked quickly, calling in Elena and Camille to help with the sewing. Marie measured and poked and prodded us to turn this way and that. Daniel and I napped in between fittings. Early this morning, our costumes were ready. When Susanna and Marie got through with Daniel, he looked like the other girl you would see on the street, except he was miserable. He rolled his eyes, he twitched, even more moaned. Susanna patted his hand and said, "Desperate times call for desperate measures." When I got my dress on, and the wig, and the hair that Marie had chosen for me, everyone stared. "Oh, Teddy," Susanna said, "for the first time, you looked like a girl. A pretty girl." Massimo bundled us off in one of those big wagons while he was still dark. He said, "Whoever comes to get you, call him Uncle and act like you are his family. He will make sure you get to the train station. Leave the rest to us." About 7 o'clock, the door of the wagon opened, and it was Carl Ringling, the owner of the circus. He called out, "Come, Prissy, come, Helen. We're ready to take you to the station." We got into a buggy. A baby prawn was already in the buggy beside us. I looked at it. Inside the prawn, in a baby's gown and bonnet, was Ethelbert. Only his furry face showed above the blanket. I had to force myself not to look shocked or laugh out loud. I said, "Thank you, Uncle. He had a nice time visiting with you at the circus. We drove you to the station. He helped us find a seat on the train, lifted the prawn up beside us, and put our suitcase on the shelf overhead. He smiled and said, 'Now, be good children and tell your mother hello.'" Then, just like that, he was gone. Love, Teddy. July 7th, 1892. Dear Martha, we left the station this morning right after Carl Ringling made sure we were safe in the seats, and we had our tickets in hand. The train started out slow as the steam built up. Chug, 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 chug. But after a few minutes, it picked up speed. Clackety-choo, clackety-choo, clackety, clackety, clackety-choo. Before we knew it, we were whipping along those tracks lickety-split. Ethel looked at me with wide eyes. He was frightened, and I was afraid he would start howling, but Susanna had thought of everything. There was a big baby bottle in the prawn, and it had milk in it. Ethel couldn't suck it like a baby, but he could lick the drops that squirted out the tip until he was calm and sleepy-eyed. I scratched his ears under the baby bonnet. He felt asleep on his back. which is a good thing because when he had fallen asleep on his back, he sleeps a long time. It was also a good thing because the conductor came by and punched our tickets right after Ethel fell asleep. I had turned the prawn so no one could see him. Today was my first train ride. The only word that comes to mind is power. The train is built of steel and iron, and the engine fills a whole car. The train cars are on wheels, but each wheel has a steel arm that pulls it around and then around and around and again. I opened my sketchbook and tried to sketch the scenes I saw from the window below. The sea was calm, so instead of crashing, the waves folded over gently and washed ashore. We passed giant dunes and a few beaches, cottages, and flocks of seagulls. Suddenly, the conductor called, "St. Augustine!" and the train began to slow. The steam whistle blew. Daniel grabbed our suitcases and I rolled the prawn to the exit. A porter lifted it down for me. I couldn't believe it, but Ethel stayed inside. The platform was filled with people getting on and off the train. Families and friends gathered down to the end. Daniel hissed at me. I looked stupid, I said, "No, you don't. You don't look like a girl." You look like a girl," he said. "What if she doesn't like me?" I said, "Who are you talking about?" He said, "Miss Melman. What if she doesn't like me?" Right then I saw her. She was wearing a starched skirt and trim white hat, and she had a gold locket around her neck. I called, "Miss Melman!" She came forward and said in a formal voice, "I am so pleased to meet you. I'm Cassie Melman of the Sheridan School for Girls." I said, "Miss Melman, it's me, Theodosia." She frowned, then she looked curious. She stepped back and looked at me again, and as she couldn't believe her own eyes, then Miss Melman's face broke into biggest smile. She grabbed me for a bear hug and squeezed me like she had never let go. "You're alive! It's you!" I got the strangest telegram from the Ringling Brothers Circus. It said Carl Ringling's niece would be arriving at the station today, and would I please pick them up at the train. I had no idea it was you. This is truly a stellar day. When Ethel heard the commotion, he jumped up and started barking. Miss Melman said, "Ethelbird!" I had to admit, it was strange seeing Ethel in a baby bonnet. Love, Teddy. July 8th, 1892. Dear Martha, I could tell that Miss Melman was totally confused. There would be a lot of explaining to do. I pushed Daniel forward. "Miss Melman, this is my cousin." Miss Melman said, "She's so pretty. I'm so glad to meet her." She turned to Daniel. "And what is your name, dear?" I said. "His name is Daniel." She looked at Daniel's bonnet, hair, dress, and said, "His name is Daniel. We have some catching up to do." When we got to Miss Melman's, a cute little cottage at the Sheridan School for Girls, she said, "I'm a cook now, Teddy, so no talking until I get a good hot meal into you. I know 2 tired, hungry children when I can see them." She made chicken and dumplings, salad, melon slices, and iced tea. We ate out at the porch. Then she said, "Now I want to hear all about it." Daniel and I spent the next 3 hours telling her everything that had happened since I saw her last with the wagon train. Every now and then she would interrupt us and say, "It did?" or "You don't say?" or "I can't imagine," or "Weren't you scared?" Miss Melman is another adult who listens when the kids speak. She was interested in everything we had talked about. I told her about the quarantine station, about Miss Essie Mae Pitts, and about Jasper Lowe's Pat. I told her about the wagon being impounded and about having to live on my own. She said, "Goodness gracious, Teddy, you are a brave girl, but this just takes the cake." I told her about Dr. Winklepleck and a balloon ride, and Green Family, and Verna and Jimbo, and Verna's creepy children. Daniel told her about us meeting in the woods and how we are cousins and why we had to run away together. He told her about Wanda and Dr. Zorin and joining the circus. Miss Melman said, "So you have to disguise yourself as a boy?" She pointed at me when he got to the part of the story about Jimbo Dud looking for us again at the circus yesterday. Miss Melman said, "So you have to disguise yourself as a girl?" and pointed to Daniel. Then she chewed on her bottom lip and squinched up her eyes. She sat thinking, rubbing her thumb. She said, "We're going to have a plan." Yes, we are. What Susanna and Massimo did bought us some time, but sooner or later, they'll never do well with turn up here asking questions and looking for you. Now it was my turn to ask a question, I said. What happened when the soldiers took me away? Miss Melman told us how the wagon train had to move to keep more people from getting the fever and dying, she said. I didn't know what to do, Teddy. I took Gurley and Gabriel with me because I couldn't tie behind the wagons. We'll go out and see them in a while. I left you a note in the wagon. I said, I found it. I felt a lump in my throat thinking about the night I found it. I felt so alone. She said, lots of folks died. We lost 16 people from our wagon train that we know of. There are others that had never heard from once were taken away. Her voice grew soft. Teddy, where are your parents? Do you know if they're alive? I told her what the man at the quarantine station said about Mr. and Mrs. Bodain dying in the fever. I said, but I'm sure it was not them. I'm sure they're alive. I hope she believed me. Mama and Pap couldn't be dead. Not now, when they are so young. Not now when they are going to start our new life together. Not now when I need them so much. Before bedtime, I showed her the land deed. See, this is my Pap's land. Miss Melman read it carefully. It says your father's land is in Dade County. He's to file his claim at the land office in the county courthouse. She fixed me a nice warm bath and went to round us up some clothes to wear. I feel like tonight I might be able to sleep without worrying for the first time in a really long time. I hope. Love, Teddy.